everyone. My name is Adrian Schoon, and it's a great privilege to be presenting to you in this social education conference. And the title of my presentation is Social Education as Thoughtful Labour and Inquiry Approach. So firstly, who am I? Ko Waio. That's a Māori phrase there. I'm a senior lecturer in education. I have been involved in working with tutors in alternative education in a professional capacity before this role at a university. I'm going to introduce myself using some kind of in a Māori way, with reference to a mountain, a river, and a canoe or boat. So firstly, we have here ko Manaia te Maunga. Manaia is my mountain, and I come from about 2 hours north of Auckland City in New Zealand, and the mountain I identify with is Mount Manaia. Ko Hate Te Awa. The Hatea is my river, and these particular waterfalls are very close to where I grew up as a child. Ko Zuiderkruis Te Waka. The Southern Cross is my boat. So my father was from the Netherlands, and he came to New Zealand in the early to mid 1950s on the boat, the Southern Cross. Kei Piriti o Mangere Taku Kāinga, and I live in Mangere Bridge in Auckland City. Currently, we're actually building a new bridge. There's an older bridge there with people fishing off it, but a new bridge is being constructed as I speak. Ko Adrian Schoon aho, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Adrian Schoon, and greetings to you all. And there's a picture of some of my children and my family there. So the impetus or the kind of background to this talk began when I stumbled upon a resource that said how to make use of teaching assistants. And I was kind of a little bit surprised by this document that I found in our Ministry of Education website, that we could make use of a teaching assistant. Like we could plug one in like a photocopier and use it. And I think the same goes for any people that work holistically with others. This isn't a matter of using people, but that the pedagogue and the social pedagogy profession is a thoughtful and thinking profession. And my own work with tutors in alternative education settings who are not teachers, but who are more like youth workers who work with young people excluded from school, that they are very thoughtful about what they do. And unfortunately, some people think that all these tutors do is play ping pong with the kids and play table tennis with them, not realizing that there is a whole pedagogy and thought around things that happen in these alternative education settings. And this is just a picture of our Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern playing table tennis. Has nothing to do with alternative education, but I really want to explore about, some of the random things that people might see, or some of those perceptions are not correct, because pedagogues, people that work holistically with others, work in very informed ways. And the theoretical basis for thoughtful labour, I think Storo has presented here very well, in terms of the fact that, it's not a matter of just working out of action, but there are theories and methods that sit behind that. And I guess today I want to give you one of those, a theoretical framework for thinking about work. Now, Paulo Freire has said that action without reflection is activism, but action with reflection is praxis. So really, this is about how social pedagogues work as in terms of praxis and that are deeply reflective in what they do. And my own study of tutors in alternative education centres in New Zealand demonstrates that they work what I have termed thoughtfully or have a thoughtful pedagogy. It is an intentional way of teaching that is caring, intuitive, and responsive. So therefore, tutors are students of their students. They know about their students, and they respond to the student in a way that is deeply informed. So in this particular talk, I'm going to talk about a way of thinking about working as a social educator, and that is through practitioner inquiry. Now, I'm using a teaching as inquiry model and applying it to the social education space. So Tim Perley has said inquiry is not a project or an initiative or an innovation, but it is a professional way of being. And my observation is that social educators are constantly inquiring and curious about the world and curious about the people that they work with. So the spiral has 6 different steps to it, and I'm just going to walk you through these 6 steps to reflect how a social pedagogue might think about their work. The first part of the spiral is about scanning, which really asks about, what's going on for this person. It's having that broad picture about someone's life. And I think Bronfenbrenner does provide quite a useful kind of framework for thinking about the various influences on the individual. But similarly, we could think about the kind of what the brain's doing at certain periods of the lifespan, and in terms of their person's human development. I also like this work by Gonzalez and colleagues around funds of knowledge, that that we all come not as empty vessels to a relationship or to an education setting, but we come with our own skills. We come with languages, we come with life experiences. And I guess how can we work with those funds of knowledge to continue to develop people? And some work that some of the people in the Funds of Knowledge project have done in the past is, ask children to draw pictures about the various aspects of their home life as a way of understanding those funds of knowledge. So therefore, if we look at this particular picture, we can see, there's farming's involved. We can see that, family's a huge fund of knowledge. That's cooking certain dishes, etc. So there's a whole lot of knowledges that somebody comes to the table with or brings with them. So in terms of applying the spiral of inquiry to social education, I'm going to base it on a tutor who is called Rose from my own study and what she knows about Offa, who is a kind of a fictional character that I have created based on kind of events and real situations that have confronted Rose in her work. So in terms of Offa, and the scanning, Rose knows that Offa sleeps in parks. If stuff doesn't go well at home, maybe she doesn't have breakfast in the morning. The parents argue. The father's a workaholic, mum's at the casino, and Offa did have a week off looking after her sick mum. But Offa loves the alternative education setting and she feels safe there. And she also really loves her language. So we've just done the scanning part. So Rose has done that, it's constantly what is going on for this young person. So the next question that we ask in this process is, where is the time best spent? So taking all of that knowledge into consideration, we kind of sit back from it and go, well, as a social educator, where is my time best spent with this person? And I like what Petrie says here. Perhaps the question we can ask is, what will promote further independence or interdependence? So where is the time best spent for Offa? Well, Offa's up to something. She's not herself. This is what Rose has indicated. And she's found out that Offa goes to sleep at 3 a.m. in the morning. And she's told Offa that she needs to go to bed earlier on those school nights. So this is really hindering Offa. She's feeling tired in the daytime. You know, her emotions are affected by being tired, etc. So this is where Rose thinks she's going to spend some time working with Offa on. So the scan has taken place in terms of what's going on for this young person. Rose is going to focus now on perhaps Offa's sleeping patterns, but now she needs to stand back from the process and ask herself this question. The next question is here, which is how is Rose contributing to the situation? Or the social educator asks, how am I contributing to the situation? And are we on the right path with this inquiry? And I like this little clip that I've seen. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So in this part of the spiral, we become more reflexive. We stand back, we question its assumptions. It's important that these get put on the table and that we recognize our position in them. Are we seeing the situation through only through our past experiences, for example? Parker Palmer has said that we, as a teacher, as a social educator, we ultimately do kind of project the condition of who we are, in a sense, onto our students, and we need to be aware of this. But he also goes on to say that knowing students requires self-knowledge. When I do not know myself, I cannot know who my students are. So we need to understand where we are in this spiral. How do our past experiences shape our social education approach? How are we listening to the inner social pedagogue? How are we caring for our well-being? How are we growing as a person? What aspects of ourselves do we see in our students or those that we work with? And in terms of the inquiry question, have I got the focus area right? And how do I know this? So Rose's assumptions in terms of this inquiry is that she looked back and found out that, and she reflected on the fact that she went to a very strict school in Tonga that was run by the Marist brothers, and also that she wanted to be a policewoman ultimately, but ended up focusing on her family and raising them, so never got to train as a policewoman, but her motivation for her work is that she wants to protect these girls. Okay, so Rose understands that perhaps she might be a little bit too strict on Offa. She's surfacing some of her own experiences in this process, but she does check her assumptions about what's going on for Offa and inquiring about what's going on in her home life. So Rose has taken some time to step back and to check her assumptions here, but she's decided to stay on focusing on the sleeping issue with Offa. So the next part of the inquiry is, well, what do we need to learn? So Rose needs to go on a journey, or this is a part of the professional development aspect of the inquiry, where Rose explores knowledges that could help her in working with Offa. So it is a research-informed approach. Oops, excuse me. So what does, it's understanding what a potential strategy could entail what capabilities would one need to implement this strategy. It's actually, are there more things we need to learn to be successful in working with somebody? And these often focus on an area of knowledge that we need to develop in, a particular skill that we need to develop, or perhaps it's an attitude or a disposition as a social educator we need to develop. So Rose's learning plan is to find out about what's going on and keeping offer up until 3 a.m. So she's going to do a bit of an inquiry there. She's going to find out about sleeping patterns of adolescents, and she's going to read some material online and perhaps look at some particular articles relating to sleep, because she wants to know more about that, and she wants to discover strategies for having a good night's sleep. So Rose is going to come and she's going to bring this, develop her professional knowledge and bring this into the relationship and into her conversations with Orpha. After the learning has taken place, then there is an action plan that is created. What can we do to make enough of a change? That's the question that it's based on. Now, I think, you know, creating goals that are smart, specific, measurable, achievable, all of these things will certainly help. And we also need to be mindful that we are working with, in this case, the young person, or working with the people that we're trying to help, that they have agency in, you know, in creating the goals and creating the actions. And this, I really encourage you to look at Hart's Ladder of Empowerment, where young people and adults share that decision making, rather than being, you know, at the bottom of this ladder. It's about managing, it's about tokenism and things like manipulation, sorry. It's about tokenism, etc. So in Rose's actions, she's going to talk to Orpha about how she can improve her sleep, and they're going to work on a plan together. They're also going to, Rose is going to ask the students to make their own way to the Alternative Education Centre, because usually they get collected each morning. And Rose thinks that this might help them get up a bit earlier, knowing that they need to find their way into the centre rather than somebody driving up and perhaps knocking on their door and waking them up and getting them out of bed. And also Rose is going to plan a visit by the public health nurse to talk to students about sleeping and well-being. So the spiral of inquiry continues. After taking action, let's just assume that Rose has taken that action, and now we're on to checking, have we made enough progress? And here, there are some questions you can ask about, you know, has Orpha's sleeping patterns improved? What things have you noticed? But I think one of the most important parts of the spiral is zeroing down to that fourth question, what parts of the spiral need more consideration? So perhaps Rose needs to learn some more things. Perhaps the hunch is wrong. Perhaps the focus area needs to be adapted as well. So perhaps when Rose looked at the reasons why she was staying up to 3 a.m., that those are some things now that have provided some more information that will perhaps impact upon kind of a different way to take action. So what I've provided here very quickly, I must say, is kind of 6 steps through thinking through working with others in a kind of in a systematic way. And I think this provides some form and shape to thinking in the social education space. So I hope that this has provided some language to make some sense of the complexity of the work that social educators do. So I really want to thank you for your focus on today's session, and I'm going to finish with a short poem that I had created on the essence of thoughtful pedagogy. And this comes from my own study, and I've used the tutor's own words from my study, my own reflections, and some quotes from some literature. The essence of thoughtful pedagogy. It was a random conversation for him, but for me, I thought about it because I'm intentional. The tutors may appear relaxed. Streams of intentional thought before actions flow beneath. Lincoln waits to give her the mirror. Thoughtfulness is a special kind of knowledge. Sir has looked at me eyes, his switched tone voice. It's a different way of engaging. You got to pick up on those things. The tutor attunes to moments. It's a relational kind of knowing where to point the arrow. There is an acute danger of thinking professionally about students. The tutor knows the students who went to bed at 3 a.m. in the morning and knows the stoners and the ones who watch telly all night. Doing maths at 9 a.m. ain't gonna work. Customize. You have to be so diplomatic. Request. A demand can trigger memories from home. Staff are compassionate, actively listening. Thank you very much for listening today. Here are some references. You might want to pause this clip to kind of have a look at those. And please contact me for any questions or comments about my talk. I would love it at adrian.scoon@aut.ac.nz. Please send me a message. I may not get to the live sessions given the time zone differences for this conference. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your conference time.